utilities and benefits. See the left brain extrovert working now? Now, if we keep letting him, he'll get to the point where he's picking me up by my belt usually. Yeah, see? All right? Now, if this horse behind me was a right brain introvert, it would either be shutting down in anticipation of something coming it didn't want to do, or it would be trying to keep as far away from me as it could. But old Caesar here is left brain, curious, and an extrovert. Never met a stranger. Okay? So he's going to keep messing with me. But let's keep going on our tools. The carrot stick is a tremendous tool of the trade. We can take this rope off and use it independently with or without it. We can use it as a bit of a way to extend our reach and leverage our physical control. We can use it to desensitize our horses, which we're going to show you about. That's one tool. This is my favorite tool, which is about a 22, 23 foot marine rope. You'll notice it's not the white tape cotton lunge line. You guys familiar with the white cotton lunge line? Never use them. Always try to throw them away. Always try to talk my clients out of it. Why? Well, because when they get wrapped around a fetlock, or they get wrapped around my wrist while he's running away with it, or it gets wrapped around something like my finger, it usually causes great harm. Whereas this has more buoyancy, it's softer, it's harder to get hurt with, but it also gives me more physical ability to project it and play with it and do stuff with it, like shoot it up here and drive it out on this horse while I'm desensitizing. See, I can't do that with that tape, right? So this is the next tool. The 12, 14 foot lead is another one. We use that at up close stuff. Now I can spend all my days now after 50 years of it with a 22 footer wrapped around my legs all over the place, and I don't get hung up in them because I've used them to the point where it's intuitive. But it ain't easy, right? So a lot of people will get worried about managing all this stuff around the horse, or they'll get worried about it being, around the horse's feet or whatever. I don't, because I feel pretty confident with it. But don't be afraid to admit that this is complicated stuff and use a 12 or 14 footer for up close work, okay? The next thing is the rope halter. Now there's 2 or 3 or 4 types. This is one that I kind of like because it's got me set up where I can use it as kind of a side pull bridle. I can move the pressure over here on the side. This is out of a guy out of like Kansas, I can't remember, Coons built this one. You'll see the average rope halter hanging in Tractor Supply or whatever that's more ropey and big and thick. And then the one that I actually like, which I don't have with me, to train in early on, is one that I actually think is at Tractor Supply, and it has more of a wire base inside it. It's thinner, and we have to be careful with it because as a result of those two realities, when I bump them with it or do something, it's a little more severe. But just like a dog I train with a choker chain, I'd rather have leverage to efficiently get the horse's attention and bang it if I need to. And we're going to talk about consistent pressure versus tempo, okay? Then I would to be pulling on it and have more leverage on their end because of the soft, big, heavier rope holders. But suffice it to say, you won't see any of us training in a big, wide nylon halter, okay? In part because these knots and all these points create very important little pressure points for us that we can use and manage. And we tend to find that this is just a more effective way to communicate with them, okay? So if we have the rope halter for the carrot stick, a 22 foot and a 14 foot 12-foot type lead, we're pretty set up. I happen to use this kind of connection, but this is really not ideal on this 22-footer because what you'll see me doing today when I'm teaching them to back up, when I'm working with them, when I'm sending them a little signal down this line, This is just a little heavy. So the normal clips you guys would see, they're sort of semicircular. You can buy at any Target store or whatever. You can stick those on the end, and that's going to create a little bit of some noisy hardware hanging on there, but it's light. So when I flip that thing up and say, wake up, it's not, knocking the teeth out, okay? Now, I won't do that to him with this one. This is mine, so I'm going to handle him with appropriate pressure. But these are the tools we trade, okay? And you'll notice I haven't said a thing about a saddle or a bit. Most of the time I'll ride horses as long as I can in the training process and never have a bit in my mouth. And as soon as I find one of my clients with some great big leverage bit, I try to figure out if I can steal her to throw it in the trash. Because what it means is they're copping out on the training. They've started to give up, and they replace appropriate education stuff with big tools to kind of compensate. JD, I feel like I'm a little bit quiet on my speaker all of a sudden. All right, so let me show you a little bit about, I wanted to make sure, Jade, that I've got enough sound there that when I get out here they can hear me. All right, so Caesar here is a left brain extrovert, and I'm going to combine a few things here as I work with him a little bit on this 22 to show you. Can you guys hear me now? We getting some sound there, Jade? Okay. When you have the horse start out in the morning, you go out and you say, I'm going to trail ride today, or I just found this, someone just handed me this horse and said, can you fix it or make it better? The first thing I want to do is look for signs of this horsenality stuff. I already know this guy, so I can just tell you that he's very, as you can see, he's not afraid of me, he's not running away, and he's nibbling, chewing. But the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say to you that the lunge line work that I'm going to show you here in a minute with him is very intentional. A lot of people think that when you throw that lunge line on and you drive your horse around in circles, you're doing it to kind of wear him out. I'm going to warm up my horse. I'm going to get him to the point where I can ride him today by lunging him to death. Well, some horses that might actually be a decent idea to take a little bit of the edge off. But the truth is that when in our approach, we use lunging and we use the first few minutes of our warm-up together very intentionally to reestablish the join up, to reestablish the leadership, and to reestablish the very practical translation I want to teach you, which is I want to own the horse's feet. When I tell him subliminally, I own your feet, then he says back, he's boss. Now I want to follow him, okay? So I'm with a horse like this, he will trot around almost asleep around the lunge line, but I'm not going to let him. I'm going to switch him back and roll him over. I'm going to back him up. I'm going to do some things. And what I'm doing is saying, do you remember me now? Do you remember that I'm the herd leader? Okay? So watch just a little bit about how we're going to do that. First, I want to see that Caesar's going to join up and look at me and give me two eyes, okay? So he knows. Second, I'm going to make sure he remembers some of our cues, which is to back, okay? And then to come. When I ask him to come and I invite him, JD, I'm not hearing much.
You're okay.
All right? So I want to be able to have him honor my hula hoop here. And I want to reestablish this joint up, say, no, it's okay, you can come in when I softly invite you in. All right? Now, back to our theme today. If I get him thinking this way, he's going to love me more and follow me around than if I give him a bunch of cookies. Because in that genetic million years of development, there wasn't a chapter in there on eating cookies. But there are real chapters in on following the leader away from the mountain lion. Okay? So now I've got his respect and attention again. And if I start to move him away to lunge him, it's intentional, and I'm sending him. And then I'm asking him to throw that hip away, and I am taking control of his mind, okay? I'm going to throw that hip out and ask him to get in touch with my feet here. And just about the time I think that he is going to just relax and go under, and I'm throwing back. Now, I'm going to add in some new thing here, and that is catching a feel or picking up my feel. Now, body language says to him, I want him to go faster. I'm not reinforcing it by cursing, but I want him to react to my body language quickly and then connect the feeling right away. Now, when we're lunging the old-fashioned way, and we want to stop the horse, what do? Well, we generally try to come up fast, but the reality is in horsemanship like this, we have a lot of things that are counterintuitive. Just when we think the natural thing is to go left, a lot of times the horse, we need to go right. Okay? You notice the way I'm stopping him? Is instead of putting my energy at the front of him and getting in his way and signaling stop, I'm putting my energy to his hip. I'm disengaging his hindquarters and pushing his hip out and centering it back up 2 eyes from the wall. I want the horse to stay in the exact same cadence, the exact same beat, until I ask him to change it. I'm in a neutral mode here. He should stay right in that little canter until I ask him to slow down. Now, let's say that we want to stop. So our natural tendency would be to say, oh, I'm going to somehow kind of signal him to get his way or bend on him or something. Instead, I'm going to ask those hips to go away. Good. All right? So instead of being in front of him to stop, I'm actually behind him. Okay? And the reason is I'm taking ownership of his feet. And I want him to be looking at me and paying attention to me. Okay? And because he's a big left-brain extrovert, left those own devices, he would be running late. He'd be an engineer out here. So I was catching a field nicely now, because now when I sit here, he's immediately responding to me. Now, if I'm going to run this horse today, after I've gone through a few of these things, he's going to be wired into me before I put the saddle. Let's drive those hips away. Remind him. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, buddy. Let's reward him. Remember our circle when we want him in our circle. Thank you. Yep. Yep. Now, and invite him to get out of our circle when we want him out of us. Now, if I've got this ability to control this horse on the ground like this, by the time I throw this saddle on and I jump up on the hip of the trail, he's starting to say, whatever you want, I'm going to follow. I'm signing up for your program. Okay? Now, the next horse we pull out here with a different horse, we might establish that in a little bit different way. But one of the things that a big left-brain extrovert likes is it needs to be interchangeable, it needs to get engaged, it needs to have its mind full, and it gets very quick. Okay? So we might do these switch-ups and really work on having a little fun here by throwing those hips out and rolling back. And he's watching my body language. I'm not really pulling on him, am I? He's watching my body language and reacting to me because he's got a good feel for my feel. So if I say we're going to back up now, I'm not touching him. Or if I want to move the shoulder around, I don't have to touch him. Okay? See how we're building softness and lightness without coercion. Right? So he's got a feel for me now. He's connected to my direction and body language. Right? Follow me? See what we're doing? Getting him to react to us just like he would have in that herd as a colt when the mares and others are moving him around, and getting him to join up with them and pattern and follow them almost in this weird magnetic connection, like that flock of birds or school of fish. They get connected because they're used to moving with others in the herd and staying there for safety, right? Now, I've talked to you about owning these feet. I'm going to show our riders here in a little while a few tricks of the trade and very important tools, but I want to preview them now in this context. And that is when we get to the finished product, when we're really working well with our horse, when we're getting the horse where we want them, we want to have a lot of control over the body parts and mainly the engine of a horse, the power center, the anchor with the hindquarters. Okay? So independently, I want to have the ability to bend this horse gently without much. See, I hardly touched his face, but he's got a feel. He knows where I'm heading here. He's mirroring me. And then I want to be able to move that hip away at my leisure and displace it without touching him. And that's how we establish that ability to, at any time in a million ways, to displace the hindquarters. Okay? Now, I don't want to get too complicated and lose you guys, but throughout the day when we're doing a few things practically, I'll come back and remind you that being able to take ownership of the hindquarters and really other parts is a critical part of our training, and it's really important to ultimately you being able to ride and control your horse and have a lot of fun and do things like lead changes and a number of things that you think, you know, this is more fun when I can move the horse's body parts independently and not just my hands, maybe with my hips, maybe with the inside of my legs, okay? This is where it comes from. We're already establishing that in the brain on the ground. Similarly, I can get that horse to back. Give me those eyes. Give me those eyes. Without a lot of coercion, when in nature a horse doesn't really back very much. So it's a great act of subordination and willingness to follow our feel when they'll back somewhat effortlessly. Okay? If we can take the time and be patient enough to establish this kind of relationship when we're feeding them, when we're leading them, when we're playing with them, and especially on the ground in these early moments when we throw this thing on and we say, we're going to go ride at Brown County today, I would take a few minutes every time with my horses, no matter how well I know them, to reestablish this a little bit, not because I want to wear them out and get them to behave, because that usually doesn't work very well. It's not bad to kind of take the, take the nerves out a little, but really what I'm doing is trying to reestablish my leadership. Okay? Now, I mentioned a term I'm going to come back to later, but one of the goals we're trying to reach for, one of the indicators that we're being successful, is the idea of a horse following our feel, so that the nuances of the movements begin to be important without a lot of coercion, because then as we get on the horse, when we're working with the horse, if we can get our movements and our cues to be more subtle and more soft, and we can begin to have the horse read our body language, that's the beginning of that real lightness and that suppleness and the kind of success that you wish you could establish with your horse. That he understands very quickly just small, subtle cues from me, and that he's very tuned into them. All right? Now, Linda, why don't you go grab Fox for me, and let's see what this looks like